5 terrifying true accounts of sinister houses. Discover the haunted secrets exposed at night. Sarah stood in the dim light of her new living room, its peeling wallpaper whispering tales of the past. Her heart raced as she pulled her children, Lily and Mark, close. They'd left behind a world of chaos and uncertainty, seeking refuge in this old, charming house nestled in a quiet New Jersey suburb. But the serenity of their new home quickly melted into something unsettling. The first night, with shadows stretching across the walls, Sarah heard strange rustling sounds. Was it the house shifting, or something more sinister? As the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness coiled around the house like a predator. Creepy creaks echoed through the neglected halls, causing her heart to race. "It's just the house settling," Sarah murmured, trying to reassure herself. But the noises grew louder, morphing from harmless creaks to eerie whispers. She shook her head, willing the dread to dissipate. After all, she was a mother, and the night should not be a source of fear, especially in the place she hoped to create a new life. But the unease gnawed at her overactive imagination. Each morning, the feeling returned like an unwelcome guest. That was, until she discovered the messages etched into the walls, chilling her to the bone. "Beware. Trust no one." The urgency of those words, carved in jagged lines, sent a shiver down her spine. The previous tenant had vanished, leaving behind only echoing silence and those haunting inscriptions. Determined to protect her kids, her curiosity led her deeper into the house's mystery, unearthing dark local lore about betrayal and malevolence. Whispers about Mr. Harlow, their overly friendly neighbor, filled her with suspicion. He was kind, but Sarah sensed something lurking behind his warm smiles. Trust was a fragile thing, and in this shadowy place, she couldn't afford to be naive. Every night, the atmosphere thickened like a storm closing in. Flickering lights danced like will-o'-the-wisps, and voices children's laughter echoed from empty rooms. Where was it coming from? She ventured slowly hall to hall, feeling a cold sweat form at the nape of her neck. "It's all in your head," she scolded herself as her children began to withdraw, retreating from the very corners of the house, their eyes wide with fear. As confusion compounded, she sought help from the local authorities, desperation spilling from her lips. They dismissed her claims, brushing her off as an overwhelmed single mother. The indifference stung, igniting a fire of paranoia within. The very residents who should stand with her appeared to perpetuate the secrecy surrounding her home. Whatever haunted these walls wasn't just a figment of stress, it was alive. That night, the whispers escalated, a frantic chorus warning her to protect her children. They became a siren song, drawing her deeper into the house's heart. Each chilling revelation unfolded a narrative of despair, suggesting she might be the next in a long line of tenants consumed by shadow. Reality twisted as she realized her children's laughter slipped out of reach, their energy waning. Her heart pumped harder as she raced through the halls, shadows thickening in her wake. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With dread pooling in her stomach, the weight of darkness pressed in as her children's laughter echoed through the walls, taunting her. As tears spilled from her eyes, she surged forward, desperate to reclaim them. Were the whispers in her mind, or did her newfound neighbor harbor a sinister intent? As she reached for the doors to the living room, which now felt like the mouth of a beast, she halted, breathless at the sight. The shadows reached out for her, beckoning what would be left of her if she succumbed. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat as she stared into the darkness beyond the door. The shadows writhed, swirling like smoke. No longer could she dismiss the whispers as mere figments of her imagination. They were real, chilling echoes of a terror that sought to consume her family. "Mommy!" Lily's voice, small and trembling, pulled Sarah back to grim reality. She turned, a desperate heartbeat racing through her. The kids huddled in the corner, eyes wide, reflecting the flickering light of a lone lamp. I'm scared, Mark pressed, his voice a whisper, almost swallowed by the shadows. Stay close to me, she urged, her voice calm yet unsteady. They moved, inching away from the living room, the soft thud of their steps muted by an overwhelming silence. The house felt alive, breathing, each floorboard a heartbeat beneath their feet. As they navigated through the corridor, a sudden gust swept through, snuffing the light from the lamp. Darkness clamped down, sharp and suffocating. Tremors shook Sarah as she fumbled to pull her phone from her pocket, the screen illuminating their path with an eerie glow. Mom, what's that? Lily gasped, pointing toward the darkened doorway at the end of the hall. A figure lurked just beyond the edge of light, too still, too silent a shadow that shouldn't be there. Sarah squinted, her heart hammering wildly against her ribcage. She felt its pull, a weight heavier than dread, drawing her closer. Without hesitation, she tightened her grip around her children's hands. We need to go, she commanded, her voice firm. They darted away as the figure shifted, a low murmur rising like a cold wind. But there was no safe haven in this house. Another door, hanging ajar, creaked ominously as they passed. Curiosity itched at Sarah's senses. Mom! Lily protested, her grip tightening. Let us not. But something inside her compelled her to investigate. Just a quick look, she promised, voice barely above a whisper. She pulled the door open, revealing the remnants of a forgotten room. Dust settled on a child's toy, an old doll sprawled on the floor. The air grew thick like molasses, wrapping around them, suffocating. Please, Mom, Lily whimpered, her small voice breaking through Sarah's resolve. No more time to linger. Sarah took a step back, but the floor creaked ominously beneath her, a warning echoed through the air. Suddenly, a scream shattered the stillness. It came from somewhere deep within the house, a banshee wail that reverberated in her bones. Mommy, what was that? Mark squeaked, his eyes darting around the dark, panic flickering in his youthful gaze. Cold sweat trickled down Sarah's back. It's okay, sweetie. We're going to find a way out. But inside she grappled with a rising tide of fear. They raced back down the hall, pressing toward the front door, heart racing as the children's laughter morphed into cries for help. The door slammed shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. The house seemed to laugh, and the shadows rippled around them, mocking her every fear. An oppressive weight filled the air. What do we do? Panic consumed Sarah's thoughts as she turned in frantic circles. The walls closed in, whispering secrets of despair. Notes left behind by previous tenants filled her mind, the warnings clouding her senses. As she fought against the relentless grip of the shadows, she glimpsed a flicker of light in one of the windows, a glimmer of hope. Quick! Over there! She tugged at her kids, desperation flooding her veins. But the shadows danced eagerly around them, intensifying, growing darker, thicker. You can't leave, they seemed to hiss as the walls pressed closer, alive with menacing energy. Mommy, I don't want to play anymore. Mark cried out, fear palpable in his voice. We'll find a way out, hang on. But even as she spoke the words, doubt weighed heavily in her heart. There was something hungry in this house, something that wanted them to stay, to be part of the darkness. With every ounce of will, Sarah faced the closing shadows. We want to give in! She shouted defiantly, but the shadows whispered back these walls. Know your fears. What lay beyond the light flickering at the window? Was it salvation or something far worse? She hesitated, heart frozen as reality blurred further, the walls tightening their grip. What awaited them in the suffocating dark, and could Sarah truly save her children before it was too late? The shadows shifted, swirling like frenzied dancers around them, as if sensing Sarah's wavering resolve. The oppressive weight thickened, the air electric with their muted whispers that crawled under her skin, sending shivers racing up her spine. Let us go! Sarah urged, voice laced with fragile determination. She turned toward the flickering light at the window, almost tangible now, beckoning to her as if offering a way out of this nightmare. But as they stepped forward, a chilling laugh echoed through the hall, sharp and mocking. The sound twisted Sarah's stomach, paralyzing her for a split second. No! She screamed, ripping her children closer, forcing herself to move. We won't let it take us! Lily whimpered softly. Mommy, I'm scared. Her trembling little hand gripped Sarah's with a strength far beyond her size. Mark's eyes darted in panic, searching for safety. They sprinted for the door, each step a desperate plea for escape. The shadows answered with a breath of cold that wrapped around them, pulling at their clothes, their hair swirling like tendrils of smoke. With every heartbeat, the darkness thickened, pressing in like a vice. Where's the light? Mark cried, fear painting his face. It's right there. Sarah pointed, adrenaline pumping. The window was closer now, its faint glow flickering like hope. Yet with every passing moment, the shadows fought back, clawing at their ankles, whispering threats of despair that seeped into Sarah's mind. Help us. Stay with us. The voices, now intimate, felt familiar and terrifying. Her heart pounded erratically, a heavy drum in the stifling silence. They reached the front door, but it stood firm, immovable and cold. Sarah rattled the handle, desperation clawing at her throat. Open, damn it! Open! But it wouldn't budge. Panic clawed through her veins. Suddenly, the shrill laughter rang out again, this time emanating from the shadowed corners of the room. You can't leave. The voice was rich, thick with malice, and it radiated a power that made Sarah stumble back, instinctively shielding her children with her body. Mommy, I want to go home. Mark's voice broke, tears spilling down his cheeks. Me too, honey. I want to go home. Her own voice cracked as she huddled them close, trying to block out the darkness inching in. The walls seemed to pulse, a grotesque heartbeat echoing their despair, drowning out her thoughts. A glint caught Sarah's eye, something glimmering just beyond the shadows. It was a small object on the floor, glowing faintly in the dim light. Curiosity clawed at her. Stay here. Don't move, she commanded urgently, stealing a glance back at the children. With trembling hands, Sarah stepped into the murky darkness, against every instinct shouting at her to retreat. She reached down and grasped the item, an old key, oddly warm to her touch. Mommy, hurry! Lily urged, her voice a piercing reminder of urgency. Before she could answer, the laughter escalated, morphing into a cacophony of anguish, rising and swelling like a storm. Shadows enveloped her, drawing close as if they sensed her glimmer of hope. Open the door! Mark squealed in terror, his voice getting lost in the rising chorus surrounding them. I'm trying, she shouted back, panic practically breaking her. She could feel time slipping away, could sense the darkness lunging forward. Gripping the key with newfound resolve, Sarah turned and raced back toward the door, the shadows pulling at her desperately, but time no longer felt on her side. Throwing her weight against it, she steeled her heart for one final attempt. If this works, she mumbled to herself, breath hitching. But as she reached the handle, the house trembled. The shadows screamed, a horrific amalgamation of despair and fury, and Sarah became acutely aware that whatever monsters lurked just behind the door were not the only threat in this house. The glimmer beyond the window flickered ominously, as if suffocating beneath the weight of dark intentions. Would they ever escape? Was this just the beginning of their torment? Just then, a chilling realization sank, and she had unknowingly awoken something worse than what was already lurking in the shadows. What awaited them on the other side of the threshold, and could the key truly unlock a path to freedom? The key slipped from her sweaty fingers, clattering against the hardwood floor as the shadows lunged closer, their whispers morphing into a horrifying chorus. Sarah's heart raced, pounding in her ears like a war drum, drowning out her thoughts. She reached down, again grasping the key, determined not to let it slip away. What if it was their only chance? Sarah took a deep breath, the air thick with the stench of decay, and she could feel the children's fear radiating off them. Mark clung to her waist, his small frame trembling. Lily buried her face against her mother, trying to hide from the darkness. Mommy, Mark's voice melted into sobs. What if it's a trap? Swallowing hard, Sarah gave him a reassuring squeeze, but her heart twisted with doubt. We have to try, she whispered, her voice trembling yet firm. The laughter intensified, a chilling chorus echoing throughout the halls, making the walls vibrate. Sarah flinched, feeling the shadows pulse, merging into grotesque shapes alive with malice. She turned to the door, clutching the key like a lifeline, and with a deep breath, she inserted it into the lock. It fit perfectly. The warmth from the key sent a jolt of hope surging through her. She twisted, a grinding sound rattling loose shards of her sanity, and then nothing. The door remained steadfast, mocking her attempts, and Sarah's heart sank. No, no! Desperation clawed its way out. She hammered her palm against the wood, pounding the door as if she could knock sense into it. I said open. Mommy, please! Lily cried, her voice barely above a whisper. The shadows recoiled slightly, a bristling wave, as if in response, and then lunged forward again, filling the space between them. Sarah felt their icy breath against her skin, sending a chill crawling up her spine. Focus, Sarah, she murmured to herself, shaking off the creeping dread threatening to drown her. Look at the key! Heart racing, she peered at the glimmer of the metal, tangling thoughts racing through her mind. With each passing second, the shadows grew bolder, surrounding her. She wondered whether this key was meant to unlock the door or unleash something darker. What secrets lay behind this threshold? Mark, Lily, hold tight. We're going to try again. She steeled herself, her other hand wrapping around the knob. She twisted with all her strength, desperation igniting her determination. The door creaked, but didn't yield. The laughter erupted into a sinister roar, echoing with rage, a storm unleashed. Come on! She screamed, hope ebbing. She pressed closer, whispering fervently, Key! Please work! In one last desperate move, she turned the key again, a cold sweat trickling down the back of her neck. This time, a crack formed near the top of the door. Light flickered from within as if the world behind it yearned to break free. Mommy, I can see something! Mark shouted, pointing toward the widening gap. But before Sarah could respond, the door shuddered violently, the figure of a man suddenly appearing in the frame. His eyes, voids of darkness, locked onto hers. Let me in, he rasped, voice low, smooth like silk laced with poison. You need me. Her heart stopped, terror surging as she instinctively shielded her children. Who are you? She gasped, fear creeping into every word. The shadows writhed like serpents, their whispers now rising into a frenzied chant, drowning out any sounds of hope. Open the door! They pleaded. Join us! Mark screamed, shrill and panicked. No, Mommy! Don't let him in! Yet the man's gaze held an enticing pull. He extended a hand, the air around them thickening with anticipation, but the danger was palpable. What choice would Sarah make? As the door hung ajar, she felt the air shift, thick with secrets, breathing despair. The whispers rose in a chaotic uproar. Would the shadows swallow them whole, or would the man offer salvation? A choice loomed before her, clawing at the edges of her sanity. What awaited behind that door? Was it liberation or a harbinger of doom? What do you really want? Her voice trembled, the cold grip of fear tightening around her heart. And just as she grappled with the weight of her decision, the world around them shook violently, cracks spreading through the walls. What lay on the other side? Would the door open with a promise or a curse? What horror had she invited into their lives? The figure loomed, his gaze unyielding, and the shadows surged forward as if eager to consume them. Sarah's heart pounded violently against her ribcage, drowning out the chaos around her. She felt the heat of her children's fear, almost tangible, a desperate plea for safety. Stay behind me! She barked, instinctively placing herself between her children and the man, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to slam the doors shut and barricade them inside, but retreat felt impossible. The atmosphere crackled with tension, as if the walls themselves were alive, eager for a choice. Let me in, the man repeated, his voice a haunting melody that tugged at something deep inside her. I can keep you safe. I know the truth. The shadows twisted, and Sarah caught glimpses of horrific faces within the darkness, silent screams and hollow eyes. Mark tightened his grip on her waist, trembling harder now, and Lily's breath came in quiet gasps, suffocated by the rising panic. "No!" Mark shouted, inching back, pulling Lily with him. "Don't open it, Mommy!" The man's expression darkened, frustration creeping into his smooth voice. "You think hiding will save you? The darkness here is what you should fear. I can help you, I am the only way." Sarah's mind surged with images of her life, happy, mundane, flickering so dimly against the backdrop of this horror. The door creaked, overwhelm rising within her as she realized that with every passing moment, the shadows grew bolder, the giggles morphing into snarls. "Mommy, please!" Lily cried, heart-wrenching innocence cutting through the murky air. Before she could speak, a force struck against the door, rattling its frame. Cracks spider-webbed up the wood as the darkness pressed in, clawing for entry as if they could taste her dread. The laughter had escalated into furious howls, enveloping them, wrapping each word in contempt. "Join us! Join us! Mommy!" Mark clung to her, eyes wide with terror. "Don't let him take us!" But the man's hand continued to extend, transcending the threshold of the door, a sickly, pale invitation. Sarah hesitated, torn between the fear of the man and the terror of unseen horrors lurking just behind her. "The truth is worse," he whispered, ignoring her children. "Behind that door is nothing but endless pain. But I can lead you away from all of this. Just open it." For a heartbeat, time slowed. The air was saturated with dread, every breath a weight pressing on her lungs. What was the truth? What lay buried beyond the door that might be more terrifying than what they faced in the shadows? Sarah tore her gaze from the man. The shadows rotted the wood beneath their feet, fascination and horror dancing wildly. "You think you can bargain with me?" she spat, rage surging. "We will not be yours!" The echo of her defiance hung in the air, momentarily silencing the screams. The shadows recoiled, tentative, grasping. She gripped the key tighter, a singular idea rocketing in her head. In one swift motion, she twisted the key again, her instincts gasping for air. The door shuddered violently. Would it yield, or would the man's words become their doom? But before any answer came, the air thickened, heavy with a chilling presence. "Time is ticking, Sarah. The choice has been made suddenly." The shadows released a final surge, crashing against her, twisting with a deafening roar. In that moment, everything faded into darkness. What price would Sarah have to pay to discover the truth about the door? Would it unveil horrors unimaginable or grant them the salvation they so desperately sought? As the shadows receded, she felt an unsettling calm blanket the chaos, leaving only one narrow path shrouded in uncertainty. What remained in the darkness? Light returned in the form of a ghostly sheen, illuminating a fractured landscape. Sarah blinked, straining to grasp her surroundings. The door loomed behind her, still intact, yet she felt its ominous presence like an anchor, something dark and heavy tethered to her resolve. "Mommy?" Mark's voice, sharp as glass, broke through the fog of confusion. Panic twisted the air, thickening it further. We're okay," she managed to whisper, yet her own voice trembled. She turned to find her children, faces pale, eyes wild. But where were they? The very room felt smaller now, suffocating, as if the shadows had morphed to fill every inch with an unseen dread. The echoes of the man's voice whispered in her mind, taunting her choices. "The truth, what's happening?" Mark clutched Lily's hand, glancing nervously around. "Mommy, I want to go home." The words struck her like a blunt force. A wave of memory rushed through her warm afternoons in the sun, laughter pouring from the kitchen. She fought to hold on to it, the safety wrapped in mundane familiarity. But now, there was only cold winds whispering through cracks, unsettling and unpredictable. The children stood rooted, uncertainty coiled around them like serpents, biting at the edges of their courage. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart thudding dully against her chest. She glanced back at the door, where shadows shifted and swirled, memories dancing just beyond. I think we should leave," she said, but her voice wavered. It felt wrong to abandon the door even though something vile lurked behind it. The thought unsettled her more than the darkness. "No!" Mark said vehemently, dragging Lily back. "We can't go, it'll get us." The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if stung by his fearless declaration. Fascinated, Sarah watched their retreat. A dark wave of silhouettes flickered before her, forming and contorting with a malicious intent. They stretched towards her, hungry and eager, reaching for her very essence. "No!" she shouted, her own voice rising higher than she'd intended. In that moment, a rattle came at the door. It trembled with a frenzy that defied logic. The wood creaked like a grumbling beast awakened after centuries of sleep. Panic coursed through her veins like fire. "Mommy, what do we do?" Lily whimpered. "Stay close," Sarah commanded, her body turning toward the rattling door. The very ground beneath her feet felt unstable, as if reality itself was bending. Then came the laughter, a cacophony of cackles, sinister and taunting, like 100 children playing in the dead of night. It clawed at her sanity, drowning out everything else. It was a mocking hymn, cruel and pleading, wrapping around her mind. "Open the door!" the man's voice echoed, emerging from the depths of the chaos. "You can't run from the truth. You can't hide forever. I don't want your truth," she shouted back, though deep down, her mind screamed for answers she couldn't face. Sarah felt a sudden cold wrap around her ankles like icy fingers. She gasped as the shadows surged violently towards her, fangs glinting in the dim light as they lunged. Time stood still, and she realized she had a choice to make. All at once, a deafening crash reverberated through the room. The door splintered, shuddering at the impact, sending a fresh wave of darkness spilling forth. The air thickened with chaos, reality teetering at the edge of the abyss. "What do you want from us?" Sarah shrieked, desperation leaching into her voice. She huddled closer to her children, feeling their fear intertwined with her own. Silence settled suddenly, almost palpable, as if the world drew a collective breath. "The truth awaits," the man's sinister whisper lingered, wrapping around her like tendrils of fog. The shadows coiled, waiting expectantly in the silence. What truth would they uncover? What lay behind the lure of safety, between the darkness and the madness? As dread seeped into her bones, Sarah knew one thing: the door was no longer just timber and iron. It was a living entity, beckoning for the light to be revealed, promising salvation or doom. Yet she couldn't escape a terrible realization. Perhaps the most horrifying truth lay not beyond the door but within her own heart. Would she dare to open it and step inside? A low snarl reverberated from behind the door, an otherworldly growl that clawed at the edges of her sanity. Sarah's heart raced, pulse pounding in her ears like a war drum. She felt the shadows surge, their presence an intoxicating mix of fear and adrenaline. "Mommy!" sputtered Lily, squishing closer to her side, fingers trembling in an unyielding grip. Mark's eyes darted to the door, wide and shimmering with unspoken horror. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, voice defeated, as she shimmered between instinct and heartache. "I don't know what's out there." The sob in her throat threatened to escape, but she swallowed it down, forcing back the tears pooling behind her eyes. The door quivered, splinters flying as a heavy weight pressed against it from the other side. With each rattle, the air thickened, stifling their breaths, suffocating hope. We have to move," she stammered, her gaze fixed on the shadows crawling along the walls. They twisted and twirled, hungry for something she couldn't understand. As the next wave crashed against the door, it swung open with a heart-stopping creak, revealing an abyss that seemed to stretch into eternity. The shadows pooled like a thick mist, swirling in hypnotic patterns. They beckoned her forward, urging her to surrender to their dark embrace. "Stay back!" Mark's voice cracked, pulling back the fragile thread of courage. "It's not safe, Mommy!" Would it really be to risk the unknown or an uncertain fate behind that door? It forced her to wonder what truth did they seek? And at what cost? Suddenly, a muffled scream echoed through the darkness, a chilling reminder of lives snatched and not forgotten. It hung in the air like a ghostly refrain. The children flinched, eyes wide as saucers. The laughter returned, louder now, distorted and layered, hitting her with a concreted dread like a physical blow. The shadows inched closer, animated with sinister energy, shifting in kneading waves. Sarah felt the weight of their eyes, probing her thoughts and secrets, searching for a chink, a weak spot in her armor. "Mommy, what if it's something good?" Lily whispered, uncertainty reflected in her innocent gaze. "Good doesn't hide in darkness, sweetie," Sarah replied grimly. Yet deep inside, a part of her ached for release. What if whatever lurked there wasn't just evil? What if it was a way to escape this nightmare? Then, against her will, her feet began to move. A pull, a tug toward the darkness it was impossible to resist. With trembling fingers, she reached out, hovering above the threshold. "Don't, please don't!" Mark cried, desperation coating his words. But the shadows seemed to flash a bright whisper within her mind, stirring something that had been dormant for far too long. She felt it rumble, a calling buried deep. With a shake of resolve, she clenched her jaw. Freeing herself from her children's grips once and for all, she stepped forward, crossing the boundary, the bridge between hope and treachery. It felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Caught in a whirl of shadows, Sarah blinked away the panic. The laughter morphed a chaotic symphony of twisted notes, and enveloped her senses. In that instant, the world shifted violently once more. "Mommy!" came their cries, fading like echoes in a deep canyon, but her mind was racing beyond the brink of reason. "What are you hiding?" echoed the sinister voice that heralded her descent. "What lies beneath the surface of your heart?" "The truth awaits, Sarah." With a shuddering breath, she plunged deeper into the darkened maw, the laughter fading, only silence left. There, in the uncanny stillness, awaited objectives untold, a fierce yearning mired in mystery and inexplicable dread that promised either liberation or horror. Just as it quieted, a sudden light burst forth, scorching her vision, fizzling her resolve like a battering ram crashing against the core of her being. Whether she could endure what awaited pushed the limits of her courage, but a shiver of doubt wormed into her bones. And there, in the brightness, stood a figure, someone she knew. Sarah. The choking voice rasped, "Look what you've invited in." As dread crawled across her skin, she realized the last horrifying truth would be unveiled. What had she truly opened? Everything and everyone would be forced to reckon with their demons. But who would it be? Sarah. The voice slithered through the air, each syllable thick with an unsettling familiarity. She squinted against the blinding light, her heart hammering. The figure before her flickered like a half-remembered dream, terrified anticipation clawing at her throat. The brightness began to shift, softening but revealing jagged edges, of delineation between light and shadow that seemed alive. The figure stepped closer, backlit and glimmering. It was a ghost of the past, a vestige of what once brought her comfort, her mother, worn and weary, with eyes that once sparkled brighter than any stars. "Why did you come here?" the query echoed, laced with anguish. Sarah was caught. She didn't just want to escape. She had hoped to understand, to find something she lost amid the chaos of life. "Understanding has its price," her mother whispered, voice wavering like a reflection rippling on still water. "You've opened a door to far more than you intended." The shadows pulsed behind Sarah, reality fraying at the edges. They whispered and howled, hungry for attention, hungry for her blood, her memories, her regrets. They didn't want answers, they wanted her. "Mark! Lily!" The panic broke through her turmoil, every ounce of maternal instinct surging forth, but the words felt hollow, muffled by the shifting shadows. She could barely feel the grip of the children, an anchoring reminder that everything was at stake. The spectral figure raised a hand, curling fingers like talons. "They are not safe, Sarah. This realm is unforgiving. It punishes the unworthy, those who seek truth without the courage to embrace it." "You know nothing about courage," Sarah shot back, rage mingling with fear. "You're dead," the figure faltered, her expression twisted with anguish. "Where do you think you are?" Her voice trembled, a haunting echo of all Sarah had cherished and lost. Glimmers of memories cascaded through Sarah's mind, laughs and tears interwoven in the fabric of what could have been. But the laughter now melded into discord, resonating with the sinister tone of the shadows. The familiarity twisted into something maleficent. "This is not where I wanted to be." As urgency clawed at Sarah's chest, the walls around her seemed to close in. One moment, she fought against the darkness. The next, she was enveloped by pleading whispers articulate in their need, in their desperation. "Join us, Sarah. Be one of us." An avalanche of horrors flooded her mind, images of her mother succumbing to despair, trapped in the chaos of incomprehensible darkness, terrified screams swirling into endless silence. "You brought me here, I didn't want this." The shadows surged, propelled by the unfurling tale of every regret and loss Sarah harbored. They licked the air, distorting her thoughts and desires, consumed by unspeakable hunger. "This is not just your fight," the echoes whispered. "But there's two." In a flash, Sarah's fury snapped. She charged toward the light, at the ghost of her mother. "If you're so great, if you have any power left, help me save them." The entity hesitated, and for a moment, vulnerability shadowed her face. "You do not understand. The past is never truly gone. It lingers like a festering wound, waiting to be exposed." Just then, a violent tremor shook the space. Mark and Lily's voices carried through the tumult, a thread reaching out to her from afar. "Mommy!" They were fading, pulled away by malevolent tendrils of shadow. "Hold on!" she cried back, desperation surging, slashing through impending despair. But the shadows twisted violently, momentarily breaking her focus. In that moment of distraction, her mother's visage sparked with the pulse of hidden power. "Your purity is your weapon, but you must wield it carefully if you dare to leave this darkness." Sarah's heart quickened. "What do I have to do?" "Embrace the truth, or let them be lost forever." The shadows screeched, swirling into a chaotic vortex, attempting to rip her apart. Fear coiled tighter, but rage surged. In that instant, the deafening whispers fell silent, and she straightened her back. The truth was here, looming like an ancient specter begging to be acknowledged. With a burning urgency, Sarah rushed forward, weaving through the swirling darkness. With every determined step, her heart screamed one word: fight. But ahead she felt the specters tickle against her consciousness, and something unexpected dawned. What if the truth she sought wasn't so simple? As the shadows recoiled, a blinding light erupted once more. Would she be able to face what waited? The children's echoes rang in her ears as she stumbled into the glimmering unknown, a dangerous brink teetering between sacrifice and salvation. Right then, a chilling realization gripped her. Perhaps the truth she needed to confront was her own. But what horrors lay buried within her heart, waiting to be unveiled? With a trembling heart, as the light and dark clashed violently around her, Sarah pushed deeper into the abyss, racing against time. Would she be able to save her children? Or would she be claimed by the darkness she yearned to illuminate? "What awaits is not merely yourself," an echoing voice bellowed from the shadows, "it is everything you've ever feared." The darkness caved in as she ventured deeper, and she could only wonder what lay beyond this threshold, waiting to swallow her whole. The shadows stormed around Sarah, a malice that felt both foreign and oddly familiar. As she stumbled through the light, the distorted whispers morphed into a cacophony, each one clamoring for her attention, each one eager to claim her as its own. "Sarah, it's happening again." The pitiful cry echoed from the depths of the darkness, twisting her gut. It sounded just like Lily, her little girl, calling for her in a tone that dripped with despair. Heart pounding, she tried to ignore the specters pulling her back. She had to focus, had to press forward for her children, for Mark, for everything good that had once been. But the shadowy figures swirled at the periphery, a wave of grief and loss threatening to drown her. "Join us," they hissed, the air thick with unshed tears. "You know you belong." "No!" Sarah screamed, clenching her fists. She felt like a candle flickering in an oppressive storm, and yet, within her flicker, a fierce determination began to glow. Then, from the swirl of darkness, a single voice resonated clearer than the others, sharp and cold. "You cannot escape who you are, Sarah. No one can." The shadows parted just enough for a figure to emerge, an ominous reflection of herself, one that wore her face but was draped in despair. Fear clawed at her senses. "What are you?" she breathed, desperately clinging to the last remnants of her sanity. I am you, the you that you refuse to see. The memories you bury and the truths you hide. The taunting laughter that followed felt like a jagged knife, piercing through her bravado. Do you truly think you can save them without facing your own darkness? Look around you. You're surrounded by your regrets. A heavy flood of memories rushed to the forefront of her mind. Faces blurred, screams faded, and shadows left scars she thought long healed. She inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of each one, the times she failed to protect them, the harsh words she never meant, the moments she let fear rule her actions. Sarah! Please! Lily's voice cut through the chaos again, a beacon amidst the binding shadows. Don't leave us! I can't! Sarah shouted back, tears streaming down her face as she fought against the tide. I want tea! The figure that mirrored her smirked, a cruel twist of fate standing in front of her. You will. You'll watch them fade, just like you watched everyone else. You can't outrun this. It's in your very bones. Suddenly, Sarah felt a shift. The darkness trembled and warped. A figure flickered just beyond the grasp of the shadows. It was Mark's silhouette, unmistakable even amid the chaos. Sarah, you have to believe. We're still here. Could it be true? A surge of hope threatened to break through her suffocating despair. I believe. I choose to fight. The shadow shrieked, recoiling as she allowed the truth to wash over her like a wave. She was afraid. She had lost so much. But she refused to surrender to that terror. Taking a deep breath, she extended her hands toward the light. I will save them. I will face whatever I have to. In that moment, the intensity surged around her. The shadows hissed and cursed, but they couldn't approach the radiance enveloping her. She felt strong, invincible. But the figure of despair drew closer, mirroring her every move with a predatory glint in its eye. Come, Sarah. Embrace what you fear most. Only then will you have the strength to free them. Never! She shouted, flicking her defiance back at it like a spark into dry leaves. I'll face any pain to protect them. As if summoned by her fierce resolve, the swirling shadows began to part, revealing faint outlines of her children, their silhouettes flickering like the dying embers of a once bright fire. They were in danger, slipping into the void with each breath she took. Come back! She cried, desperation clawing at her throat. A roar echoed through the darkness, the shadows gathering for one last assault. The air crackled with tension as Sarah knew the moment was upon her. Was she ready to confront the truth of her darkest fears? Would it save her children? Or swallow her whole? A chilling whisper echoed. Through the blackness, the truth lies not just in your past, but within your darkest intentions. Are you prepared for the revelation? With one last look at the flickering shadows of her children, she stepped forward, heart pounding, knowing that the answer awaited her just beyond the light. What would she uncover? And at what cost? Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling the tremors of uncertainty ripple through her being. The shadows surged around her, coiling like serpents, but the surge of defiance warmed her heart with a fierce glow. In that moment, she made a decision. Enough! She shouted, her voice echoing through the gloom. I will face what I fear. The ground around her trembled, and the wave of shadows hesitated, recoiling as if they felt the heat of her conviction. With newfound strength, she plunged deeper into the light, pushing past the figure that mirrored her deepest fears. Show me then! She cried, demanding. Show me the truth I've avoided. The darkness churned, twisting and writhing as the shadows seemed to ripple in response to her courage. The visceral energy sent tremors through the air, mingling with the scent of regret and sorrow. A bright flash erupted, blinding her for a split second. As her vision cleared, she stood in the center of a room, the walls lined with faded memories flickering like old film. Pictures of her children were painted upon the surface, Mark and Lily laughing, running in a sun-drenched park, blissfully unaware of the shadows creeping in the corners. It was an idyllic moment she had almost forgotten. But as she stepped closer, the brightness dimmed, and shadows crept into the edges, twisting and distorting the scene. Suddenly, she saw at the moment she was afraid to confront. The day she had lost her grip, the moment when stress and fear overshadowed her judgment. "Mommy, don't go!" resurged the echo of her children's voices. The scene shifted, revealing a tangled web of choices and mistakes. Every harsh word, every moment of doubt, coalesced into figures that flickered, crying out for recognition. "No! I didn't mean it!" she shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was scared. I was trying my best." "Yes, you were. But the truth won't set you free until you shed your fears," the echoing figure whispered, drawing nearer, an unsettling reminder of what darkness could do. "And what if I can't bear it?" Sarah gasped, heart racing, the weight of despair settling around her neck. She felt as though she might drown beneath the heaviness of her past. "What if it sinks me forever?" "Then you must be willing to let go," the shadow replied. "Feel the pain, face it, and you might just find the strength to rise." The words ignited a fire within her. She closed her eyes, recalling every moment she felt she had failed, recognizing the anguish that had haunted her nights. She envisioned the warmth of her children's arms, their laughter echoing in her ears. "I release you," she breathed, feeling the pent-up sorrow surge to the surface. "I release all of you." The shadows flickered violently, their cruel grip loosening as she embraced her truth. The whispers around her escalated. "You cannot hold on to things you no longer need." And then it happened. The room exploded in a burst of light and sound, the echoes of laughter intertwining with anguished cries that faded gradually. Everything fell into a surreal stillness, save for the images of her children. "Sarah," came the faint whisper, a chorus of her children, now visible in the light that enveloped her. "We're still here." One heartbeat thudded in the silence. Hope blossomed, and she felt a surge of strength propelling her to break through the shroud of darkness. "Together," she whispered, determination like steel solidifying within her. "We will rise together." With her heart full, she turned to the shadows, bearing witness to their swirling and twisting forms. "You will not own us. You will not dictate our future." The shadows recoiled, a horrific howl escaping them as if they sensed their defeat. The room trembled, shivering with colliding energies. The more she confronted her fears, the more solid she became. Sarah breathed deep, drawing strength from the laughter of her children radiating like sunlight. She felt them beside her more than just memories of palpable, fierce love that shattered the darkness. "I choose love. I choose truth." And with that final declaration, the swirling shadows spun wildly, before imploding into the darkness that had once consumed her. A light surged forth, illuminating the creaking walls, peeling paint, and fractured memories reduced to dust. In the aftermath, the quiet washed over her, tranquil and warm. Her heart raced, echoing as she turned toward where her children had stood, but they were gone. "Mark? Lily? Mom!" Their joyful laughter erupted from outside, filling the air with brightness that chased away the lingering shadows. She rushed toward the door, flinging it open, and breathed in the sun-kissed air. There they were, her children, bright-eyed and alive. Lily ran to her with open arms, and Mark joined them with an exuberant cheer. "Did you beat the darkness, Mommy?" Mark grinned, bouncing on his toes. "I did," she replied, overwhelmed with relief. "And we can keep beating it together." As they embraced, warmth blossomed around them. A renewed life thrummed in the air, brushing away remnants of despair and weaving strands of hope for their future. The haunting house was still behind them, but its shadowy grip had loosened, giving way to the light filtering through. It no longer held the same sway. "Let us go home," Sarah said, her heart racing with gratitude. Together, hand in hand, they stepped boldly into the day. She knew this was just the beginning. Truth and courage would guide their way, and in love, they would thrive. The nightmare had led her to this moment, and it was a moment of resolve, of strength, of irreplaceable love. They left the echoes of the shadows behind, embracing the promise of a new life, a life not defined by fears but by the unbreakable bond of a family facing the future together. Finally, they walked into the light, a pathway forged through darkness transforming into an avenue of resilience and hope. Now, if you've enjoyed this nail-biting conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach even more fans. And flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this intense ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions.